Okay, so here we go with part 3 of Indicate with me, and it's unfortunately not going to be the unabridged thesis on machine shop indicating. It's just going to be little snippets here and there, and some of it's going to be good, some of it's going to be bad, and like I say, you can take your pick. You don't have to embrace the whole manifesto by any stretch of the imagination. So there's all sorts of other great YouTube videos out there on every subject you can think of. There's some pretty clever ones about getting your vise tapped in short order. I know Blondie Hacks has some good ones on that, as do others. When it comes to the milling machine, Tangent Jim has an excellent one about that overarm and the relationship of the actual spindle to the table. I recommend watching that for sure. Of course, Joe Pazinski has some excellent ones on lathe headstock alignment and lathe leveling. That's very worthwhile watching, as does this old Tony. He's got some good ones there, and there's others as well that I either forgot to mention or haven't watched yet. And get out there and get a little bit of everybody else's opinion and take on the subject, and hopefully I can tie some of it together, because I noticed there's a bit of when it comes to a subject of headstock alignment versus steady rests, there's a lot of other videos that come close to what I'm going to try to explain later on, but they don't quite get there. They're real close, but for whatever reason they skirt it. It doesn't enter into the program, if you will. So what are we trying to achieve with indicating? We're trying to get a very good idea of what is going on in the present situation. In one of the other videos, I mentioned the whole past, present, and future concept, whereby if you want to know about the past, you should consult a drawing, a photograph, or some recorded dimensions. If you want to know about the present, you can indicate that now, and that'll allow you to see into the future in a way, because if you know exactly what's happening to your part now, when you take the next cut, you'll know what it'll look like when you're done cutting. And that is all about indicating either your tool path or something opposite your tool path, or adjacent to, or right angles to. It's knowing where that tool is going to cut in relation to the part and what the outcome is going to be. So there's another tool we can use in the lathe, a turning tool. So we can turn an OD with it, which we just did here, or we can face a part with it, which I also just did here. Now, that tool will only move along one of 3 axes. One is the length of the bedways, as we're looking up and down here, because of course it's mounted to the carriage, which is sitting on the bed. The other axis is controlled by the cross slide, and that, hopefully, if your machine is in any good working order, will be perfectly 90 degrees to the long axis of the bed. Somewhere I read somebody said that machines are supposed to face some sort of convex, or it was rather a strange premise. I don't believe that to be the case at all. Those ways are cut straight, and they're supposed to be cut exactly 90 degrees to the V's in the bottom of the saddle there. So this cross slide should move 90 degrees to the long axis of the ways. Then, of course, we have the compound, which we can adjust to a different angle in this orientation. For the sake of the discussion, we're going to ignore the compound. We're going to pretend it doesn't exist. So same thing in the lathe. We can be measuring about an axis. We can put a dial indicator here, turn the part around, and we're going to be measuring the OD of the part as it moves around or about the rotational axis of the spindle. We can also indicate along the axis by, say, attaching a dial indicator to the carriage and then bearing against either any feature you want. Put the dial indicator there, bear against there, and then move the carriage down. You're measuring along an axis. So in this case, we'd be measuring the axis of this quill or spindle in relation to how it is indicating along the axis of the travel of the carriage, which is, for all intents and purposes, the axis of the long axis of the bedways. And this is going to be a lot of talking in this video, but so be it. And that brings me to yet another point, which is assumed versus indicated. So when we're setting parts up, a lot of times we're using an assumption. We've assumed. If you put a short part into a 3-jaw chuck and you tighten down on it, is it concentric? Is it set up? Is it indicated? Is it perfect? No, we're assuming that it is. We clamp down on it, we hope for the best, good enough. That's fair enough. We put a tool into the tailstock, and then we come in here to center drill it. Well, is that center drill actually in the center, is the center point of the center drill in the center of rotation of that part? We've probably assumed it. Some of us perhaps have indicated it. When we put our tool in our tool holder and drop it on, are we assuming or indicating, insofar as our center line height? Our tool path as it is interacting with the part, are we assuming or indicating? Every time we engage that power feed and that carriage starts running down the part, it's going to run down the axis of the bed, which may or may not be our desired axis of it running down our part.